So welcome to another episode. In the last episode I said I was going to do episode number 2. I actually just deleted that one. I checked it out again and wrote down what I said in it, and I saw that a lot of these things I adjusted, so it's not really true to the content of that episode anymore, so I just decided to make another episode, which I also take on a couple of more tips. One that came from Michiel Tieleman, so thank you for that, in which he said that would be nice for viewers if they had some sort of agenda beforehand, which I can imagine is nice, and also a little bit of an outro at the end with a summary of the episode and the call to action to ask people to comment in the comment section below what they think of the subject or if they have any questions. So feel free to do so. I ask you now, but I will ask again at the end of the episode as per request. But thank you again, Michiel. That's very nice. So here follows a short summary of what the episode is going to be about. And what I wanted the episode 2 to be about, but because of lack of structure, I didn't really get to. That's the circumstances that lead to domestic violence, or of course, it's a very complex and personal, a complex problem, and which has a personal characteristic for everybody. And not every story is the same. I think there are certain patterns, but they are different based on, I think, the victims and abusers' sex or gender, whatever term you prefer. And people's ethnic background can already make a difference, their religion, and so on. So, but this is my story, so I can't speak for everybody, of course. So I would make a jump a little bit into to history. I will give you first a little bit of a summary of which things, and then I will dive deeper into them so you have a bit of an idea what you can expect. So I was looking for something stable while I was not really stable myself, at least the feeling of confidence. I looked for confidence in the affirmation or confirmation from other people, mostly women. So my feeling of confidence was dependent on someone else, and I wanted some sort of confirmation. So that is one very important ingredient, I think. I had just come out of a deep relationship, or at least one where I felt I had failed in my and I wanted to redeem myself in some sort of way, so I was very invested in keeping the next relationship going, so that was also an ingredient for me. Those are the most important things, and I didn't really listen to my instinct when the first slap happened. So when the first act of domestic violence was present, I didn't think, okay, what should I do in this situation? I didn't put my own feelings first. I didn't prioritize them. So that also contributed to me being in a domestically abusive relationship. So, but let me start from the very beginning. So now we have the topics or subtopics covered. So at the time I had different flings going on before a relationship. And I wanted to have a break from having a relationship. So I was not only dependent on the confirmation from just people I was in a relationship with about my self-image, but also from those who were close to me, my friends. And what I heard from my friends is that I have the tendency, at least what I heard back then, to dive into a relationship like nose first, just go for it. And I recognize myself in that a little bit, and I thought that I should be careful because of it, because they warned me for it, instead of really trying to think, is this really a problem, and what is that problem? I didn't think it was sustainable. that's what I thought. So I was confirmed in that sort of belief. I wanted to find real love, like many people do, I guess, and didn't think this was the way to find it, because it felt a little bit like trial and error. I thought I found really at the time someone I thought was truly amazing, and I guess she was for the time being. I mean, things turned sour after a while. So yeah, then you have to reshift and your ideas about what your ideal partner would be. And I didn't think about how could I be an ideal partner. I wasn't busy with that. I was really looking for someone who could complete me, make me whole. So that also determined the kind of person I was looking for. But I'll get into that later. So I was keeping diving into a relationship a day by dating several women, and that worked fine for a while. I was sort of satisfied sexually, but also in terms of the attention I was getting, also quite important, I think. So I was saturated on different levels. But what I missed was a deeper connection with someone. So and maybe it's possible if you date several people that you can still have a much deeper connection with one or two of these people. But for me, that it didn't work out that way. It didn't, I didn't have it that way in my head. So I made quite a rigorous turn. I changed some stuff around in my life because I was in an insecure and unstable position, basically. And I was artificially trying to make it more stable by satisfying very basic needs. So I was also a copywriter, and I stopped doing that, and I also looked for another job. So that happened almost at the same time. I think they are connected in some sort of way. So yeah, even though I was looking for something stable, I was also looking for someone who was adventurous and exciting, and of course someone that I could build a relationship with. And someone, I guess, who was special, who had achieved something remarkable, something that I hadn't been able to do, for instance. So then enters my ex, who had traveled to Europe, and I fell in love with an Italian guy, and she was traveling around with a friend. She stayed with this guy for a little bit longer. Eventually went back to the States because she couldn't just stay immediately after the trip because of the visa. But she arranged things, put things in motion, and came back to Amsterdam and sort of started living together with this guy from day one. And things didn't work out. I can imagine, it happens. And I didn't think anything of it at the time. But she fell in love with Amsterdam, which I can also imagine very well. And then she stayed and built up her life. And I thought that was very impressive. You come from another country, you come here for love, but you end up staying and building a life for yourself. Says something about someone's resilience, and it's an admirable trait, I would say. Also, I was a little bit, not jealous, but impressed, because I had always had the dream of studying abroad for half a year or a semester, but at the same time I didn't really have the guts to do so, or the energy or whatever. I never did it. And also working abroad for just a while, there's a fantasy. I think many people have that. I just never put it into motion because I never had the energy for it, but also because I didn't want it enough, because I really like my life here, and I have my friends here, I have my family here, and I want to be close to them. So that's also a reason. But yeah, my ex had made that leap, and so she appealed to that particular fantasy, that particular adventure, going abroad and studying or working. So that's pretty cool, I would say. Then for some reason, drugs were also discussed on our first date, and she had used several in a seemingly very controlled manner. I have to admit I've also used my fair share of drugs. Under the motto of I'll try anything twice. Yeah, whatever blew my way. Of course, certain drugs I avoided, like heroin and also meth. It's also not very available over here, but this is something that she had used. And I was confused at first because when I heard that she had used meth, I thought you would get immediately addicted for one, and secondly that it would alter your face in a negative way quite instantaneously. But yeah, of course, this only happens after you are severely addicted and malnourished and just live for the drugs, I guess. If you use it for a month recreationally, it won't do much to your appearance. But yeah, this sparked my interest. I wanted to know more, so yeah, a second date was easily arranged from my end. But she also seemed interested, so also from her end. Yeah, on our second date, she took the initiative. Yeah, I mean, sexually. But yeah, things moved forward quickly. I was also, of course, interested. I didn't say no. I didn't play hard to get or anything. So, yeah, things moved quite quickly forward. But because she took that initiative, I also really felt desired, which, yeah, really played into that feeling of wanting to have some sort of confirmation. Yeah, we spend a lot of time together in the beginning of a relationship. I think that's quite normal, and it's not really an indication that your relationship will turn into an abusive one. So yeah, I think there's also patterns, which makes it hard to tell the difference between an abusive relationship in the making and a perfectly healthy relationship. When is spending a lot of time together something good and when is it something bad? And just on the surface, it's hard to tell the difference. Because in the beginning of a relationship, you are in love and you want to spend a lot of time with your partner. I think people who've ever been in a beginning relationship will recognize this as being true. What changed with us, though, is that after a couple of months, she wanted to go on to a vacation with one of her exes, and that really shook me, of course. And at that point, requested that we have an open relationship, and we were at the point where you would ask, like, okay, what do we have? Which is also what she asked. What do we have? And then usually the question follows. Not literally, probably, like, do you want to be my boyfriend or do you want to be my girlfriend? And now it was, do you want to be my boyfriend in an open relationship for a period of time? Because there was a deal in the making, which I had not thought about for a second. The trade was that she would go on a holiday with her ex, and I was going to South Africa in November of that year. So this was, we met in August, so a couple of months after. And that I would be there the whole month and that I would be allowed to do whatever I want, if you know what I mean. So I could sleep with other women, basically. That was the deal. Yeah, this led to our first fight, just a verbal one though. And what I took from it was that she didn't want to lose me. But that she also wanted to enjoy the freedoms of being single. And retrospectively, and of course this is really easy, Captain Hindsight is always right. I should have said, like, okay, thank you for the good times, but I'm out of here, because it's a bad sign. If you don't want to be in an open relationship, don't be in an open relationship, basically. And it's also weird, or if you want to be in an open relationship, don't do it in a temporary way or in some sort of very non-emotional trade about a very emotional subject, I guess. So yeah, that's advice I would give to my younger self if I would ever meet him again, which is not possible, of course. But yeah, so that was a weird situation. Um, and what I take from it, like why I stayed in that particular relationship at that time, was because I was looking for stability. And oddly enough, having a relationship, even though it's open, in some sort of weird way, is still more stable than not having a relationship. And so in South Africa, I made use of the arrangement the very last day. And I felt like deeply ashamed because I said before it's not something I wanted to make use of or something that I needed. I wanted to dedicate myself to just one woman, and I want to have a close relationship. But yeah. And I also felt in a weak spot because for some reason I thought she was going to use it against me. And yeah, this was just a gut feeling because, yeah, no, it's not completely a gut feeling. Before that, already certain things had happened that made me feel like she clings to the things that have happened in the past, and she brings them up. Sounds familiar to some people, maybe, but certain women sometimes like to do this. Definitely not all women. But yeah, so I was afraid. Then I arrived back to the Netherlands, and she immediately, like as soon as we sat down in the house we were living in at the time, temporarily because my friend with whom I was living had left for Vietnam, and we could temporarily move in together. I think that was at that time already. Doesn't matter. But she told me immediately upon arriving back to wherever we were staying that she had had phone sex with her ex, and that she had read through my diary. So yeah, the two quite big confessions. I was really shocked that she was so noisy. But I didn't really draw any conclusions about our relationships based on those events. I was actually too caught up with what I should do with the fact that I slept with someone in South Africa. Do I either tell her or not tell her? Because we agreed that we had an open relationship, but we didn't agree that we would share our experiences. And I really didn't like that she told me about these things. That she had phone sex with her ex. I rather not had heard that. She had also told me when she was on that holiday in Poland with the same ex that she had sex with him, which I could have guessed, of course, but I didn't want to hear it. Yeah, of course, the diary, reading through my diary is something that I rather had not have happened, of course. But since it happened, I'm glad I heard it, I guess. But yeah, I didn't want to tell her because I was afraid of any consequences. But eventually I did happen to tell her, which came about in a bit of a clumsy way. But that's the first time she slapped me in the face. And at first my thought was immediately, okay, this is it, I'm out. And that's my gut feeling, I guess. That was my gut feeling, and I should have listened to it. But anyway. During my holiday, she had been very mistrusting and cursing me out. So another reason why I should have left. But because of guilt and a lack of self-worth, I guess, I decided to not end things. I thought maybe things will improve. And this was at the beginning of our relationship. So yeah, if things are already shit in the beginning, they're going to be shit. Is a conclusion you can draw. But after that slap, she also told me that this was not the first time this had happened. She had also been in abusive relationships beforehand. And let me rephrase abusive relationships. Relationships in which she was abusive. She told me about, like, with her ex, and I was really surprised that she had been abusive with her ex because his ex had phone sex with her and went on holidays with her. Like, I would never ever think to go on a holiday with that particular ex ever again, let alone have phone sex with her. Like, hell no. But yeah, I was baffled that this guy still wanted to hang out with her, as I just made clear. Bad Hero was also sticking around, so couldn't really blame him. Then things moved on like they normally would in a relationship. We moved in together, like officially, and talked about the future. Although I was quite apprehensive about it because she also talked about kids, and I was sure as hell not going to raise any kids with her. She was also concerned about this herself, admittedly. She knew she had a problem, and that she wanted to break the circle of violence, I guess, because she had been abused as a kid, and inherited a psychological disorder. So yeah, I can imagine that you are apprehensive as well. And I was in it a bit in two ways. One, I wanted to help her get over the idea that she would be an awful mother. I honestly believed that if she would work on herself, that she could be a perfectly fine mother, that she would be able to break that circle, that vicious circle. And on the other hand, I thought, like, I don't want to run the risk of raising a kid with someone with severe psychological issues, in which I get hit every now and then. Like, I don't want to have that in my life. Like, fuck this shit. Even though my self-worth was, or self-esteem, were both low, I did have that little bit of self-respect still. So eventually, I expect her to improve and work on her aggressiveness, and I also talked to her about it. She went to see a therapist, and so I was positive that this would help, but it didn't. And she kept implying that I had a problem as well. Well, I started to realize that at that particular moment, my biggest problem was her. And in my head, I was constantly debating how and when I should leave her. But I was too afraid that I could lose all my stuff and had to start all over again, which I had to do before. And that's just the fact of life. You lose things sometimes, people, circumstances, stuff. You suffer your losses and you move on. That's what you're supposed to do. Don't cling to those things just because you're afraid, because then you might sink into a big, deep black hole. And eventually I got over the fear because I was much more afraid of where this situation would lead if I didn't interfere. I feared for my own life, but I feared that also one day I might just snap and I wouldn't want to know what the consequences would be if I would snap. What I was afraid of was either one of us dying because of someone snapping. And I didn't do the snapping. She was doing the snapping. And I thought maybe she can push me this far because, of course, I am not a fucking saint. I am not made of stone or marble. Eventually, if you push me long enough, I can react as well. I didn't want to. Eventually I was like, no, I don't like where this is going. I don't like all of this negative energy, all of this stress, being afraid that I might get a beating at any particular moment. And being afraid that if I do get a beating, that I will start to hit back or something, or that like I would let go, like she would let go. And not thinking about the consequences at all, because you have to realize that if someone snaps, they just don't think about the consequences of their actions anymore, and they don't care at that moment if they hurt you. That's horrible. Like that has such a deep emotional impact. That's not necessarily physical, because I was and I'm much stronger than her, and she didn't know how to throw a punch properly. I learned that, but it's also about the intention. It's the intention that you want to hurt someone. That hurts, in my case. I guess when it's different roles in terms of sex, then the man is stronger, and if he snaps, then there is a lot more physical pain, I guess. But yeah, that's a bit of a sidetrack. I like to keep these things in, to make it a little bit more spontaneous. But I understand if it distracts a little bit. I don't care. So after things escalated big time one evening, she tried to kill me, basically, by throwing a small statue at my head, which I have still standing in the bedroom, which I won with track and field. I planned my exit. That evening I called the local authorities, which were only concerned about, so she threatened to kill herself if I left. They were only concerned about her suicide threat, not about the fact that she broke down the whole fucking house and that she tried to kill me. They didn't even ask anything about what she did to me, which I made it very clear on the phone. She attacked me. And I also gave context to her suicide threat, but no, they were only concerned about the suicide threat, nothing else, which also quite kind of stung. But yeah, I quickly after that I escaped to Rotterdam, and I could start rebuilding my life. And so granted, my self-esteem and so on wasn't what it could be before I met her. And I really thought, and I still thought that after that relationship, I didn't really have time to evaluate the systemic issues that I had in that relationship, because you're too busy with dealing and living from dealing with the violence and the threat and living from day to day, that there's no room to evaluate your own shortcomings. And I have them, of course, like everybody. And I ended up in this relationship also because of my shortcomings. So I thought, confidence as a man comes from how successful you are with women. And so I quickly, again, went on Tinder and tried to find a new date. And I did, quite quickly. It would still take me quite a while to understand that it comes from within. Confidence comes from within. And that equally, you do not have to prove your worth to anyone but yourself, which is also very important. So I think making sure that your confidence comes from within before you get into any relationship, a romantic relationship or a deep relationship, is, according to me, the way to ensure that you do not fall into the hands of an abusive partner. If you have a choice, of course. So to summarize, this is how I ended up in a specifically abusive relationship, and then some generally shitty relationships, one before and one after. But there can also be factors outside of someone's power that make them end up in an abusive relationship, like arranged marriage, or where there is an equal power distribution. So someone is an elderly person and they can be abused by their children. They didn't decide knowingly and willingly to go into that relationship. That's just where they end up because of circumstance. So I don't want to ignore circumstance either, but I think in my case a lot of suffering could have been avoided. But here we are, and I also learned a lot, so I'm also grateful. So yeah, as said at the beginning of this particular episode, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section below. If you want to stay anonymous for whatever reason, I can understand very well. You can also send me a message. Just look me up on LinkedIn. Just search for my name and you can send me a message. And I will not discuss your case on this podcast, of course. I understand things might be sensitive. But yeah, I can help you. I can also forward you to other people if you want. Even though I don't know, if I don't work as a volunteer anymore at Black Group, I still think they are doing a good job at helping people. So I also know people there. So yeah, please reach out. And also still comments, constructive feedback is always welcome. So thank you again for listening.